Greetings, grade six. Here we go for another YouTube clip, and I hope you guys have been keeping up with your work. I guess the thing that I can say about most of the work you've been doing, and I've been getting back, really enjoying your stories. Use your imagination, and you've used a lot of facts, which I've really enjoyed in the stories. Your millionaire's looking fantastic. Haley Young, I can't say anything except that has going to cover most of our wall. And Leanne Miller, you've had a crack too, and it's looking good. So I'm really pleased with what I've seen on Millionaire. When we get back, which is only a couple of weeks away now, well, we'll get those out and we'll have a look at them all, so everyone gets a chance to see what people have done. Now, last week we were looking at culture and things around our society. This week's work has also got culture in it. You've got a word find in it. You've got a whole lot of things. We're looking at refugees, and we're looking at people where they came from and why they were refugees and so forth. As I said, there's a word find to do. I want you to do that, send it back, because it'll appear in your next week's work. I'll pick out some really good ones for everyone to do. So make sure they come back in as best format as you can. Capital letters, remember. Now, a couple of things I just wanted to go over, and that was division. Now, division is one of those tough ones. It's a tricky operation. With multiplication, we know we have to remember about multiplying by the second digit has to have two, putting down a zero, so for that second digit. There's a whole lot of things we need to remember for multiplication. But division, which is almost totally opposite in some ways, has a few little strange quirks as well. And the first one here, I'm going to show you on the board, is one of those quirks. Now, we have 35,647 divided by 7. How are we going to do this? People always ask me, why, Mr Simondson, do you get kids to do this? 7 into 3 won't go. Put down the 0. You don't need to do that. Doesn't need to be there. But it's important that it is, and this is why. When we look at the next number, 7 into 35, we say it goes 5 times. There are no remainders. So we then say 7 into 6. A lot of people get mixed up and think, oh, well, I'll just say 7 into 64. No, 7 into 6. It won't go. Put down the 0. Now it's 7 into 64. You get it? Some people might leave that out, and we'd be one digit short. And this 5, instead of being 1,000, would only be 100. So it's important you do that. So here we are, 7 into 64 goes 9 times. 9 sevens are 63, 1 left over. We put the 1 up there next to the 7. 7 into 17 goes twice. Now, there are, so twice is 14, of course, there are 3 left over. We either now say remainder 3. We could say and 3 sevenths, because remember we spoke about that if it was dividing by 7, then the denominator would be 7 and the numerator would be the amount left over. Or we could be all grown up in grade 6 and do this. Notice I put the decimal point straight above it there. Okay? Straight above it. Now we had 3 left over. 7 into 30 goes 4 times, 2 left over. 7 into 20 goes 3 times, and 6 remainder. Do we have to worry about the 6? Yeah, it's big, isn't it? It's big. We would put it down here if it was another 0, and it would be 60, and we'd end up with a large number. In this case, we won't worry about it. We'll just go to 2 decimal places. We'll forget about the leftover, and we'll call it 0.43. Okay? Mainly we deal with centimetres and we deal with dollars and cents. That'll do us for grade 6. So the answer is 5,092 and 43 hundredths, or 0.43 if you want to be lazy. Now, the reason I mention the decimal point is because sometimes you get this. Sometimes you get 6 into 479.36 or 479 and 36 hundredths. This is what we do. 6 into 4 won't go. 6 into 47. 7 sixes are 42. 5 left over. 6 into 59. 9 sixes are 54. And there are 6 left over. Are there? No, there's 5 left over. Now I went over the decimal point, so as I go over it, I make sure it goes straight up there. 6 into 53 goes 8 times. 5 remainder. 6 into 56 goes 9 times. Yeah, 9 times. 9 6 to 54. 2 remainder, we won't worry about it. 79.89. Pretty straightforward. Something else people have been asking me about is the Australia trip. What do I do? Where do I start? Well, you start by picking up this piece of paper. That one, which I couldn't. And you have a read through it very carefully. And when you read through it, you'll note that many of the questions are answered that I get. Many of the questions I'm getting are answered. So, if we start with a piece of paper, your task is to plan a trip around Australia for your family. You need to visit as many places as you can, but you can't spend more than $100,000, even if you need to purchase transport and caravans. You also must be away for at least 1 month, so at least 1 month, but no more than 3 months. So either 31 days, but no more than 93 days. You are expected to produce a PowerPoint with the vehicle or vehicles you travel in and the purchase costs. You may already own these vehicles, so there is no need to purchase them. Some people said, can I borrow Uncle John's caravan? It's grouse. So you can borrow Uncle John's caravan, but I want to see a picture of it. It's got to be there in the PowerPoint. And you think to yourself, why does he let us borrow things? Because this is a real life maths activity. This is something you may do in the future. I've done a trip around Australia with my family. So I had to purchase a caravan, a car that could do it. So this is one of those things that many families do. So you may borrow something off Uncle John or Grandma and Grandpa. Or you may use your four-wheel drive that you've got at home that's really only just for transporting lots of people, but on a trip around Australia would be perfect. I just want to see pictures of them, okay? A map with towns and roads you will travel on and visit. So I've got a map down there on the piece of paper, and it's actually a map of Australia, and it's got the roads marked. It's not bad, but it's far too small for what you're doing. So in your handout last week, I gave you a black and white, simple map of Australia with some roads and things marked. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to use that as your rough draft. Not anything else, your rough draft. I then have mentioned and shown you how you can put your data into a table. A grid with the distances you will travel and the cost for fuel associated with your vehicle. And there's an example of one there. The places you will stay and for how long with the cost of the stay. Some pictures. Tourist attractions you will visit and how much it will cost your family. Pictures. Cost for fuel on average will be $1.80 per litre for diesel, $2 for petrol, 75 cents for LPG. And you might look around and say, oh God, it's not that much now. But there are places in Australia, in the middle of nowhere, where people charge a lot for fuel, like $2 for LPG, $2.50 for diesel. They do that simply because they can. There's no other choice. There's one service station in town, so that's the one you use. They get to choose which price they charge. I'm going to let you use those figures there, and we're going to do those in class when you get back. I'll let you know how we figure out your mileage and things and costs. Now, Down the bottom there, I talk about in real life, you'll have other things to consider. What would they be? Use a map to plan your route. Use a grid. This must be presented in a PowerPoint. I talk about food because I'd like a page of your PowerPoint to talk about how you would allow for your food. Now, you and your family, in a month, would spend this much money. And you would do that pretty regularly. Sometimes mum and dad might budget for 200, 250, 300 a week. So that means in a month, it's 4 times that. Then if you were traveling around Australia, you'd have little nights out and so on. So once you've worked out for your month or your week, whichever way you like to do it, add a bit on for those special meals that you might have. And then that will be 3 months, 3 times that, 12 weeks, 12 times that, whichever way you like to do it. It's an estimation, and that would be enough. You'll be back here in a couple of weeks, so we'll be able to go over this if you've got any troubles. But the first thing I would do is get out. You know you're going to do a PowerPoint. Decide on how you're going to travel the first thing. Do you need to buy a car? Do you need to buy a camper van? Look into it, like we did with Millionaire. But in Millionaire, you didn't care how much you spent. In this one, you do. Car, van, camper, which way are you going to do it? Then I want you to think about the trip. You know places in Australia you'd like to visit. You've heard of them. Maybe even go on the internet and say great places to visit in Australia. See where they are on the map, which cities. Look at how you might drive around Australia using the roads to those different places. I had someone say, could we do it in a boat? No, because there's places in Australia where the ocean is far, far too dangerous. And there'll be a lot of things you won't be able to get to because you're in the ocean rather than getting onto shore. Some people went Winnebagos, which is a camper that's on the back of a truck. Some people went caravans, some people went tents last time, so you need to choose which one works and then start thinking about the places you want to visit. Get out my map, the old black and white map in the kit, and just have a look at the places that you're thinking of going to and where they are. Maybe go on the internet, ask mum and dad, talk to Uncle John who went around Australia, where should I visit, so on, and start plotting it out. The places you're going to go to and then how you're going to get there. That's the first thing you do. That'll take a while. That's okay. Then you start your grid. And like I've got on the sheet there, it starts at Doreen and the first place it visits is Cows down on Phillip Island. I use Google Maps to work out the distance. I decided I'd stay in there 2 days. I'd say I'd go to a Big Four caravan park and I looked up the cost, the Big Four in Cows, and it was $160 for those 2 nights. If you say 2 nights, say it would be 2 nights. 2 days, it would be 2 nights. Then I wrote down in the next box the things, the swim, the surf, the penguins, all the things I'd visit and how much that would cost. Swimming cost nothing, surfing cost nothing, penguins, that's a big deal. That's a family trip down to the penguins, $260. I went bike riding because you had your bikes on your camper, all around your truck and on your roof and so forth. That's free. Then you'll see the next line, I went from Cows to Tidal River. So your map will tie in with that grid, the places you go to. And you know Google Maps will tell you distances and so on. When you get to a place, go onto Google and say, I'm going to stay in Bethanga. Strange little place. Up on the Hume Weir, on the border of Victoria and New South Wales. So you type in places to stay in Bethanga, and it'll tell you. Go through the places you want to stay, pick your places, work out your costs the way you go. You may also wish, what am I going to do in Bethanga? Well, Mrs. Green's got a boat she often takes up there, and I think she's got a caravan on the lake up there. You might visit her and go skiing. But there mightn't be anything else to do except hike or swim, so that's what you'd write down. Most of you will want to go to the Gold Coast and you want to go to the theme parks. That's cool. So when you get up there, you'll write down those things and you'll put those prices in. And this grid will work its way down until you find yourself getting all the way around Australia. It's not a short project. It takes a while. It's a project that seems daunting and it's got all these things going on and all these things you've got to have in it. But if you just take one thing at a time, your way around. It will all turn out okay. Now, during this week and into next week, if you go into week 7, you'll see some PowerPoints. And I'm going to put up some PowerPoints that have been done before of this particular project. So you can have a look and see what people have done. Don't use them to plan your whole trip, but just you'll know what people have done before. So that will be on the website in week 6 and week 7. I'll drop a couple in. All right. So hopefully that's given you a little bit more of a rundown on division, where you come to. Hopefully that's got a few people a little less worried about the Australia trip. Just think of it as, hey, this is going to be really cool. I'm going to visit a whole lot of places in Australia. I will say there's one place way down in South Australia. It's called the Head of the Bight. And if you visit there, you'll see whales and calves and things like that. That'd be something I'd recommend. So when you're thinking about this trip around Australia, talk to people that have travelled. Ring them up, say, hey, got some great places. Don't get too excited about finishing it off in a few weeks. It will take a long time. We won't have to hand these in till probably 5-6 weeks, midway through next term. I'm okay with that. That's cool. It will take us a while. But I want you to spend the time making sure you get this really, really cool project going. All right, I hope everything's going well. We'll have a Zoom meeting again Wednesday. If you've got any questions, save it up to the end of that. And as people go, we can get the last couple of people on there and we can answer your questions. Not long to go now. I'll see you all in a couple of weeks. 3 weeks. Any questions, any dramas, email me, text me, ring me. All right. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.